So again, the reason why we're all brought in today is because the South Coast has an incredible opportunity to actually attract inward investment throughout the region. We don't shout about the projects that we're doing enough, and there's some incredible things that every single one of you in this group are doing. This is our 4th year of running these shows, and they are getting bigger and bigger, despite the storms and the weather warnings. So I'm really happy that you are here. I want to just say a massive thank you to all of our sponsors. Our main sponsors, Spectrum, Forth, RSK, Geoscience. There are so many that are in this room. So please do go around, speak to everybody, network. Network is your net worth, right? So, but I'm going to hand over to a good friend of mine, Caleb Harker, who's going to host our first panel. So over to you, Caleb.
How's this? Okay?
Yes.
Because from this perspective, all I hear is myself, but I don't hear how it's projecting. So I always have to ask. Thank you, Nella. Nella and I met a couple years ago, and I have to say, I am impressed with her energy, her professionalism, and everything she's doing for the South Coast and for her customers around the UK. So thank you, Nella, for the opportunity to be here today. You guys heard something about COVID at some point? I'm going to try not to talk about it too much today, but I will have to say that our topic on the Office of the Future is super relevant right now because of COVID. The role of the office has changed massively. It no longer has a monopoly on work. We proved these last few years that we really can work anywhere as long as we have a good internet connection. But as we become really good at working not face-to-face with our customers and our colleagues, the value of coming together face-to-face goes up massively. So for me, the Office of the Future becomes a tool in the platform of work, not the only one, but a very important and valuable one. And today we're going to talk about some of the trends that are shaping that future office. So, we okay with that? Anybody disagree? We want some disagreement today, so please shout out if you do. Okay, so that was my easy job. The rest of the hard work's up to these guys here. So my first question is going to go out to Andy Hodgkinson, the Director of Office Advisory for LSH. And Andy, can you give us maybe a general overview of what's happening in the South Coast? What sort of trends are you seeing from office customers?
I certainly can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just Caleb, just to pick up on something you just said, the office market is obviously changing. You could say the pendulum swung heavily one way because of COVID. Did we need an office where we couldn't come to the office, could we? So basically the office was dead, in quotes, at that stage. So, and we're on a road back, we're on a journey of recovery in the office market. And the South Coast is no different to that. But 2020 to 2023, we've seen a huge change. What are the influences on that? Obviously, hybrid working is a major influence on the office market. Hybrid working obviously is work from anywhere, and technology has had a big influence on that. Technology has proven through COVID, because it had to, that we can now work from our bedrooms, from a coffee shop, from a hotel, from our office. So it was a case of how do we make the office relevant now? I think it comes back to people, collaboration, that being able to learn, coach, train your newcomers coming into the office. So that's sort of the journey that we're on at the moment, and I think we're on the way back to that. Just talking about some metrics, supply and demands. I would say supply side, we are seeing an increase because we've got this overall sort of trend of It's about quality of space now, less than quantity. That's driven by cost largely. So the cost of office space, if you're thinking about energy costs, so service charge levels are going up. We've just seen business rates changes. Generally, that's on an upward trend, so those costs have gone up. But also, in order to drive people back to the office, we're looking at health and well-being. We're looking about the quality of space that people are in there, and that costs money. So landlords, Kingsbridge is an example here, and I'm sure Rachel has something to say about this, but occupiers are now demanding much better quality of space to drive people back into the office, and that costs money. And the side effect of that is obviously rents for the best quality of space have to go up to support that.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to turn to Simon Helliwell. Simon is the Chief People Officer at Siverstream, fast-growing technology company. Simon, I'm hoping maybe you can corroborate some of what Andy said. But my first question is, I said you guys are a fast-growing company. That's a bit of an understatement. You guys are growing massively. So I'm wondering if you could sort of share how that growth has been the last couple of years and how it's going in the future and what the office needs to do to support your growth.
Sure. Thank you very much for that.
Can you hear me? Yes, absolutely. So
just as a quick intro, you probably don't know who we are. My company is Siverstream Technologies. We are pioneers of something called air lubrication, which is essentially our product pumps air, a carpet of air bubbles underneath the hulls of large ocean-going ships. In doing so, reduces the friction between the hull and water, reduces fuel consumption by between 5 and 10%, and therefore reduces carbon emissions consequently. So as a business, because there's a lot of pressure on costs in maritime industry, focus on sustainability and carbon reduction, business is growing massively. So we were recognised as the 4th fastest growing business in Europe in the Financial Times earlier this year. So 200% compound annual growth rate from a revenue perspective the last 4 years. In terms of headcount, which is the area I'm focused on, we pretty much doubled our headcount last year and doubling it this year. But we've grown very much in the last sort of few years. Essentially, the business went from startup to scale up during the pandemic. So we've never had an office-based environment or an office-based culture. So for us we're opening an office in the Southampton area. We currently have 2 offices, one in central London, which is our commercial head office, about 25 people. We've got an office in China where a lot of our product is installed. So as a business, we don't manufacture the equipment, we don't install it. So we're sort of in the middle of that supply chain. So we're really focused on R&D, focused on commercial growth and innovation. And as business is growing, that's the why. We need to really be clear on why do we want people to be working and operating from an office, where we've actually grown successfully without that. And as business has grown so quickly, our average length of service is only just over 1.5 years. Average length of service across the whole organisation. There's only 13 people in the business who have been there more than 3 years. So it's all about knowledge transfer. It's about creating innovation. It's around supporting that. Particularly with the people we're hiring a lot of young engineers, new graduates. It's so important in that stage of their development and their career development to have an office-based work. But just picking up on a sort of, I guess, an adjective you used there was around drive, or a verb around drive. We're not trying to drive our team members to work in an office. They have to want to go there, and that's absolutely critical. We've got to create an environment where people want to work. And it offers something that working at home doesn't. Because actually people get very comfortable. They're all invested in sort of screen setups, etc. And they're pretty productive, at least they think they're productive. But productivity is quite short-term thinking. It's also very convenience driven. So we've got to create an environment that draws people into the workplace, where it offers something. And of course we're learning. So we're not getting our employees back to the office. It's a new behaviour. So I think as I think about as a tenant, an occupier, as a business around what do we need, we have a thought, but we need to experiment. And I think that's something that we really need to get right or need to enable, which is around flexibility. So, we know, and I was in a much bigger organisation, a corporate organisation before or through the pandemic, and how we work changed significantly. Now in that office, we had to shift the proportion of small, medium, large meeting rooms because people come into office for a different purpose. We don't know how our team members will work, so we're going to have to build in flexibility, and we'll get things wrong, and we'll have to adapt to that. But for us, it's around sort of creating an environment that really is going to be helpful for the long term. And back to your point, Caleb, our business is doubling. We've got an order book that's growing exponentially, so we know we're going to have to scale the business and making sure we create an environment which enables us to get into the culture of an organisation of a startup or as a scale-up business is going to be really important.
Very well said. I would like to underline the word flexibility there. Fast-growing companies massively need agility. Often on my socials, I post probably too much, but always say the future's flexible, and I think that's a good point. So we didn't plan this in any particular order here in the seating, so I'm going to skip Rachel, but come back to her. Apologies.
That's okay.
Coming to Sean, Sean is the general manager of Clockwise here in Southampton, and here in Southampton because it's right down the road. But Clockwise is all over the UK, and so I guess my question to you is: are you sort of seeing from your customers, because you operate flex spaces, are you seeing similar feedback from your customers as Simon's fast-growing company, or what are you seeing, and how has life changed for your customers, and how has that affected how you design your spaces now?
Yeah, so we've seen a massive change obviously since COVID in just the last couple of years with the adaptation of hybrid working. People are used to working from home nowadays. So for us, it's trying to create a space that's going to make people feel comfortable, make people want to come back to the office. And effectively, our companies coming to us want flexibility nowadays. They want flexibility in the sense of they can scale up as and when they need to, or they can move back down, take a step back before they make that jump forwards. They also want flexibility from a landlord point of view. For us, we've tried to make a space which is collaborative, comfortable. We've got club lounges in our spaces which are beautifully designed, and they're supposed to encourage people back into the office, make them comfortable.
Can I just interject there and ask you, when you say club lounges to make people comfortable when they come back to the office, how does that work?
So even if you're in a private office, what we're finding is people are used to having Teams calls in their home office. Knowing that people are going to be coming back into an office space and being on Teams calls, we know that they might well need a level of privacy. So we have soundproof call rooms. We've got the club lounges where they can break out into and still have that sort of level of independence, I suppose, but privacy mainly. So yeah, we've tried to design our spaces which encourage collaboration, but at the same time make people feel comfortable. You're also finding that companies are obviously looking at, instead of taking 10,000 square feet of space, they're looking at what do we actually need. We know that our team are comfortable working from home several days a week. We have seen that. As a case study, we've taken on some traditional tenants, or previously traditional tenants, who've had 100 desks. They find that they're only using sort of 50 of them. But for them, that hybrid adoption works extremely well for them.
In London, which is where I'm based, we see that quite a bit. And whereas companies used to come in and have one desk for one person or per person, now it's 4 people to a desk, or maybe not even assigned seats anymore. So it's an interesting trend. Rachel, when I come to you, there's this theme of customers needing this agility, flexibility, and service from their real estate. And I appreciate in our prep call, I appreciate the fact that you guys as a landlord are leaning into space as a service.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you could share some of the strategies you're implementing to adapt to these changing demands from these office customers, and particularly here in the South Coast.
So I think it kind of goes back to what Andy was saying at the moment, that occupiers are really demanding more when it comes to their office spaces these days. They want more than just the traditional office where they go into their office, stay within that office and then go home. people are really expecting an experience now when they go to an office. So I would say pre-COVID, occupier demands had already increased, and things like showers, cycle, storage facilities were all must-haves. Now, since COVID, people are expecting more, and strategies that we've implemented or things that we've been doing on the South Coast is actually taking back some lettable office space and repurposing that as business lounge space. So space that occupiers can use. The same, a massive thing that we've seen since COVID as well is the demand for outside amenity space. So in any of our buildings where we have the ability to do that, we've really focused on how we can repurpose outside space. And then that kind of leads on to the service thing that I was talking about previously, is that in our buildings, rather than having a typical security person or concierge, we now have what you would call a customer experience manager. So their responsibilities go above just the receptionist roles. It's actually about managing that building, creating a community, hosting events within the business lounge. An example, I was at one of our properties on the South Coast yesterday, and they had a Great British Bake Off cake sale where all of the tenants got involved. I know that in that building, one of the occupiers, a legal firm, they hosted a talk which they offered freely to the other occupiers in the building. So it's really about going over and above when it comes to our buildings now. People were working at home offices in their bedrooms during COVID, and they want a different experience.
Yeah, so for the last 10 seasons on my Workable podcast, a recurring theme has been why are people going to want to come back into an office? You touched a lot on it, Simon. People want to go where they feel like they belong. They want to be around other people that challenge their thinking. They want to go places where they feel taken care of. And it becomes that hotelification of the office.
Yeah.
And I think the content and the community aspect is key. So it's refreshing and encouraging to hear you as a landlord embrace that.
Yeah.
I want to turn to Josh because Josh Fidler he's the MD for Spectrum, and look, there's costs going up and interest rates are going up, supply chains going up. We still have to build the future office. So how are you working with investors and landlords and operators and customers, tenants, to manage these increased costs, but also deliver what everybody needs?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge. I think the biggest overall trend that we've seen is that people this year are much clearer on what they actually want from the office, particularly on the South Coast. I think maybe there's a lot of more traditional companies on the South Coast that may not have embraced hybrid working in the past, and I think there's been definitely been an awareness over the last few years. So I guess the first thing that helps is, in terms of build and come back to the cost, is a clear understanding of what's important. And at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to priority. And along with, for some companies, for a lot of companies, sustainability has come through. So obviously balancing that up within the costs as well. But ultimately cost is led by the design. And I think that's, from us, I think that's been the biggest impact, where we bring both together and try and align that early on, so that when we're working through a bit more of a journey together, designing it, making sure it's hitting the key points, but that the budget is following that same curve. But I think costs have levelled off broadly. I've seen the significant drops, unfortunately, but it's certainly it's always a point for a client that you've got to get right.
I'm going to stay with you for a moment here. Can you share maybe some opportunities or challenges that are unique to the South Coast when it comes to future-proofing the office?
I think opportunities, and I'm sure the rest of the panel here are very aware. There's definitely been, and it's been talked about for a long time, but a trend of maybe people moving out from central London and setting up some of the smaller hubs as part of that. And I think with that comes a new level of expectation from the office, as already been referred to by the others. But I think sustainability, for example, a business that maybe used to coming from London has a certain level of standards of what they expect from the building. So I think that's definitely an opportunity and the investment that we've seen. I think in terms of a challenge, like I say, I guess maybe some of the budgets are slightly different. But as I say, it comes back to priorities within that business and making sure the concepts that you pull together aligns and hits the key points. But I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, before I move to the next topic, any other final comments on? Yes, sir, Andy.
I'll just pick up on one thing, obviously. So in terms of the cost, one of the ways that occupiers are managing that is obviously taking less space. So you talked about sort of desk ratios per employee, so that ratio has probably increased to allow people to probably keep their costs manageable, but improve the space they're in. The other trend I think is probably worth a couple of trends worth touching on is the Cat A plus model. So landlords to support and trying to attract tenants into space are now sort of providing fully fitted options, which almost sort of leans into the service office model. So where tenants perhaps are looking for that flexibility, they don't want to perhaps have a large upfront cost in terms of capex, but are prepared to. They want still that quality, but they're prepared to sort of amortise that cost over the length of the lease. So they're just paying a premium rent, and the landlord is stepping into that and actually providing that space. We very briefly, didn't we, touched on sort of the whole environmental and sustainability aspect, and that is a growing importance, quite rightly, for a lot of businesses. So landlords again are having to step in and improve the quality of the space from a sustainability perspective. So there's a big investment from that side. Legislation is also driving that because the future is that the performance of buildings has to improve from an energy performance perspective. So that's very much a growing factor in the decision. Perhaps I would agree with that, but now I think occupiers are saying we'll only look at buildings that have got an EPC rating of an A or a B, perhaps. So landlords are having to change to reflect that.
I'm going to pause for a second and do a time check. How are we doing? Okay. Whenever we do these panels, we always get really ambitious with the content we want to squeeze into a short amount of time. I think what we discussed primarily so far has been about the customer experience and providing a place that people come together, giving companies the agility to be able to grow and expand and contract and be flexible with their growth. Sustainability, as you rightly brought up, is a key, massively important topic. There's a carrot and stick to that. And I did a podcast with the CEO for Urban Land Institute, EU, and we talked about bridging the gap and how investing in sustainability is super important. So, I want to turn to Simon in these last couple of minutes. We're going to do sort of a quick fire here. Simon, if landlords and operators are investing massively in sustainability, it costs a lot of money. Is that what you want? Will you pay for it? I'm just being blunt here.
I guess if you go back to our mission is to reduce the carbon impact in the maritime industry. So that seeps into the values of the organisation and seeps into people we hire. We're a small, well, getting bigger, but sort of early stage business. We don't offer the same sort of benefits that large corporates do. So people work for Siverstream because they really care about what we do. They care about the impact we have. So as an organisation, it's deeply rooted in our values. So the simple answer is yes, absolutely. Sustainability for me is what we talk about in terms of the efficiency of the operation of the office. The efficiency rating, whether we have solar panels, green energy, etc. But also I look at it slightly broader, which is around sustainability of our employee and our health and well-being. You know, within our criteria that we use to choose our office location, there were all the efficiency ratings, etc., but also, you know, good public transport, accessibility through walking, through cycling. You know, we've just launched Cycle to Work as a scheme. As you say, having good sort of bike storage, shower facilities are actually critical for us. Are we willing to pay for it? Yes, of course, we recognise that. So we could go for a cheaper option and compromise our requirements and our values. But equally, that's the standard, I think. I think we should all be aspiring to that standard of workplace. Tying back to our earlier discussion, we've got to create an environment where people want to come to. So there's a big draw for us because of the values of our organisation. But actually, if we don't create that right environment, we're going to lose the battle to have people working together for their own benefit going forward. Because, you know, if we have to start mandating and telling people they have to be in the office a certain number of days a week, we've lost the argument. We've lost the culture of the organisation.
Motivate versus mandate. I like that. Well, I'll naturally come to you, Rachel.
Yeah.
So maybe can you talk about some of the priorities that you're focused on when it comes to sustainability?
Yeah, I would agree with Simon that energy efficiency is still the key thing in the office sector. So for us, that's targeting the top EPCs that we can in our office buildings. Energy efficiency is super important for occupiers because hopefully it meets their own sustainability objectives, but also it helps to cut costs where utilities costs are so high at the moment. And when we're talking about best-in-class products, which need to demand the highest rents, we need to think about how we can cut other costs for occupiers. So there's the sustainability angle, and there's also actually making office space affordable. So I would say that's the key thing we're focusing on at the moment. I do personally think there's work to be done in that space because EPCs are only a snapshot in time, and actually we need better certifications going forwards that can monitor usage. And there are some, like neighbours, I know that we're looking at now and considering for some of our offices, but that's really the way I think it will go, that we need to be monitoring usage going forwards, and energy efficiency is still the key thing for offices.
Thank you. Sean, I'm going to get you to chime in on this piece. I think you probably got 10 seconds to say it though. What are you guys doing?
So yeah, so for us, obviously, as we're the supply chain, we supply the space. So for us, we're heavily focused, and we're aware that we supply the energy, we supply we supply the tea bags, we supply the cleaning products. So for us, that green angle, sustainability comes at a price. For us, we look at ourselves as a premium product, and we want to be able to stand up and say, we're a green company. We're all about environmental factors, ESG as a whole, health and well-being. So yeah, for us, we're 100% behind it. The building is runs completely 100% on green energy. We have our an ESG champion manager as well. So we're going for a couple of ISO accreditations, just as part of the Clockwise. It's not even part of the actual building itself. For us, it's a massive focus. A lot of our furniture is sourced locally. It's made from local marine waste. We're all about recycling and reclaiming materials. And again, just on that sort of well-being piece, we've got like storage showers, like I said previously, we've got collaboration spaces, phone booths. Little factoid actually. The phone booths are made from 1,088 recycled plastic bottles. There you go. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So to wrap up this fantastic discussion, I think we could probably second. Oh, really? Okay. I have time for questions. So I should have told you that beforehand so you could be thinking about it. But I know somebody has one dying question. Yes, sir. What is your name?
Robin Chase, Southampton Park.
Thank you. Oh, can we get a mic?
You talked about the hotelification of the office. I'd be interested in the panel's views on how you manage the company that wants the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but not on Monday and Friday. How do you cope with that sort of model?
Well, I would normally just turn it over to the panel, but I'm gonna go straight to Sean because I know you deal with this every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we've obviously, flexibility being key here. We have offices which are purely bookable on a hybrid basis. We've got, I'm not going to name dropping. We've got, some quite large corporate firms who book with us on a, it might be once a week, it could be twice a week, could be once a month. But yeah, we have them options available for people to book on a daily basis. On top of that, we offer day passes and also got meeting rooms anyway. So yeah, bookable by the hour, by the day, whatever you need.
But you're sort of right straight to the customer in your layer of the industry. I want to come to Rachel on that question as well. How do you view that problem or opportunity?
I mean, in truth, it's probably a bit different for us because occupiers are leasing space on longer lease terms. We're not offering a serviced or flexed offer. We're just offering services within the common spaces of our building. So for us, we're still getting longer lease terms, and then it's really up to the end user as to when they're using their office space.
Okay. Good. One more question? Yep. Any more? Oh, there we go. Yes.
Don't worry about the mic. Andy, can I ask you a question, please?
No.
That was a no.
Hi, Andy, sorry. Quick question about supply and demand, South Coast. We haven't really touched on it. I know you mentioned that obviously office space users are purchasing their space in a slightly different way, i.e. sometimes taking a smaller floor plate than they had been before. How are things looking now that a lot of Southampton, for example, space has been sold off to students? And are we struggling with supply of offices to the demand that is maybe coming out of London and the bigger cities?
Well, supply is going up, but I think the supply, if you were to cut a slice between city centre and out of town, the growth in supply is typically more out of town than city centre. I think for the South Coast, a lot of our larger floor plates are in the out of town office business parks, and it's those larger corporates that are making the more significant sort of reductions, if you like, in terms of the amount of space that they're taking. So, a company that's in 70,000 feet might be now looking for 30, for example. So, the city centre's probably got less of a supply, sort of an oversupply issue. In fact, they've got the opposite. They've very much got a supply constraints issue. You pointed out that a lot of the buildings that are no longer fit for purpose for office are going to alternative uses. And what we're not seeing is any new office space coming into the market. So we haven't, for a decade or more really, we haven't seen any new build office space come into our market. So that is a bit of a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for people like Kingsbridge to then, get in and buy assets at the right price and refurbish them to meet the new demands of the market. And I think just to quickly pick up on that, because I'm running out of time, flexibility is key, which back to your point, Caleb. So now from a landlord's perspective, splitting floor plates up, being flexible around how you're supplying the office space is important.
Well said. And to wrap up the panel, I'd say that the two key words coming out of this is flexibility and sustainability. That's a big part of the office of the future. I think on the supply side of real estate these last several years, there's been a lot of us standing up and trying to sell people to get back into the office. And I think going back to Simon, we need to motivate, not mandate. And there's going to be opportunities, I think, for us in office real estate to help customers be more efficient, to use less space, and ultimately they'll probably pay a little bit more for it because they're saving in aggregate. Mm-hmm. So please give a round of applause to my team. Questions? Back to you, Noah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was really insightful. Obviously, I think there is a real opportunity for us to capitalise on the rents on the South Coast. Obviously, we're supporting with Siverstream with their acquisitions. When you think about the acquisitions in London and then coming out of the region, the rents up in London, they're topping like £100 per square foot. Obviously this, in the region, it's around 25 to £30 per square foot for your top end quality. So I think I think there's a lot to take away from today. So thank you so much for the panelists.